What's up, my people? Welcome to Fellowship Bible Church's Sermon Spotlight, where we're coming at you each and every week with a fresh weekend to debrief in an effort to send biblical truth. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb Pearson. Joining me in the host spotlight is Mark Francis. MF, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
What's up?
Thanks
How
for
are
being
you?
here, dude. Global Church is upon us.
It is here.
It's a week. It's kind of a week and a half. It feels like a month. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, to me, I can just relax now. Like the planning and the preparation is really the busyness of it all. And any one specific event, the better you plan, the easier the event is. And here, this is a week long of multiple events. So just you can exponentially grow what the planning of that goes into. And then when we're here, we just came out of just a fun staff meeting and lunch together, and all the thoughts and planning goes into it. I'm like, okay, I can just now relax. Things are great.
Good.
So that's my life right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then joining us, who's in the pulpit this weekend, global pastor and local Commanders fan, Scott McManigle. Scott, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for being here, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of how we ushered in Global Church Week for the congregation at large in these services. Obviously, we wanted an intentional time to hear from our Global Church partners, to hear from you, and then obviously Jim next week. So let me start with you, Mark, and we'll kind of hear what maybe was left on the cutting room floor from Scott, and kind of more about the need that we've come to notice.
Yeah. So this is off the cuff, not planned.
Yeah.
But my role as event coordinator, I can't even remember how long it's been. It's been about 10 or 12 years I've been doing this. And one of the very first events that I was asked to plan was Missions Week, or a missions conference. And that team that we put together spent almost a year in planning something where we had to retool what the purpose of this was. I had to grill Scott and Jim at the time. What are we really trying to do with this week? And variety of different purposes. And we really had to that's where the name Global Church Week came from. We called it a focus. Right. That was 10, 12 years ago. So to see, at least in my world, the progression of what Global Church Week has now become as just like a pillar in our church's life every 2 years, and to see our church be excited about it, to see the partners come back together and have a family reunion essentially on the service before Saturday, to know that this is just something that is valued here in our church. The elders down, we value missions, and to then see what the fruition of that is like is exciting. So even hear you in the Scott in the sermon to say the purpose of why we're doing this is to just encourage our own body, so you can build relationships with the visitors. For the visitors to be encouraged, because they're in a grind in a world that's not America, where they're doing ministry. So it almost give them a respite or a vacation here is another second purpose. But the third biggest one is just to glorify God for what he's doing around the world. To me, when you said that, I'm like, wow, that was years in the making to really fully pull together what the purpose of Global Church Week is. And so to hear that as just one of your opening comments was encouraging to me to say, this is why we're doing it. Because it matters. It matters to God, and it matters to our church's leadership. So,
well, and that's what we'd love to hear a little bit more from you, Scott, is talk to us a little bit more about that need, and even your perspective of what we're doing in years past. I mean, he's mentioning what it was like 10, 12 years ago. I remember growing up, and I just always have these pictures in mind of the banquet. There was always this dinner in that big room where my mom would say, the missionaries are going to be there. So that's when we'd go interact with them. But it seems to be, to Mark's point, more and more a part of our local church's culture to be aware of not just global missions, but how we do it specifically. So walk us through your perspective of how has this time changed over the years, and how has the Lord stirred in your heart in regards to what the hope is?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that the need has changed. I think we've recognized a need for this type of ministry, of equipping leaders who can turn around and effectively, establish the faith of their churches. But in terms of, our purpose for having it here, that's morphed a little bit. I think initially it was mainly to provide an opportunity to get all these global partners together, because they come from different countries. And so if you remember what I laid out in the first point, in the visual that I used of the lost man and the new man, and just showing what we believe that becoming established in the faith is. It's transferring your trust, hope, and dependence from resting in your own effort, your own obedience, your own faithfulness for a sense of rightness and holiness and acceptance before God, to resting solely in the finished work of Christ. Well, when you begin to grow in your understanding of those truths, but yet you're surrounded by other pastors, maybe even coworkers. I had this for years and years and years in the tribe. I was growing in my understanding of these truths, and my partner wasn't. And it got to where, honestly, we couldn't fellowship over the Word of God at all. It didn't matter the passage, we were interpreting it differently. And so for these guys, and a lot of these guys, that's the kind of situation they're in. So for them to be able to come together and really experience a real unity of the faith with other people that are in the same role, even though it's a different country, different culture, is just huge for them. And I think that's still one of our main purposes. I think it was initially, that's really what it was about. But for me, it's so important for our body to bring them all here. If it was just about them, it would make more sense for us to hold a regional conference in Africa somewhere or in Asia somewhere. We would be able to bring anybody and everybody. Everybody would be able to get visas.
It would be easier in many ways.
Right. But, if it wasn't for our body, there would be no global missions program. If all of us were left to ourselves, we wouldn't have come into contact with any of these people. And so, we just really want the body here as a global missions team. We really want the body here to really have a sense of what they're a part of, how God is using them, just because they're a part of this body.
Right.
How God is using them and how God is using us as a body. We just really trying to raise the value for that.
And I think that stands out because I remember, I grew up in this church, and I remember feeling that shift even in my own thinking, where when we do something like this, it's not pitched or explained in such a way where it's you need to be a part of this or you should be a part of this. Instead, it was you are already a part of this. And I actually started
even if you don't want to be.
And I started to get ears to listen where most of the emphasis, most of the communication was actually about things God has already done.
Yeah.
And there was a celebration and a fellowship about that. It's just, that's very backwards to what a traditional missions mindset in a local church could be, where we're sending one of our own elsewhere, and there's always an ask and a need associated with it. But I've really grown to appreciate this time because it can be easy in the mundane or even in the busyness here local to forget being a part of Fellowship Bible Church means a lot of things you might not know.
Yeah.
And for a young adult to realize, oh wow, like if I give to this church or if I pray over that, you are part of our global missions program, and this is simply just a reminder of that.
Yeah.
I've always appreciated
and all the many
that.
things happening in Global Church Week. There's so many different opportunities to just grow in your relationships with the visitors, to learn a little bit about the missions program here. But we're here, this is the sermon spotlight. So we're looking at like, okay,
what do
we
we
have
cover?
2 weekends worth of material that you interviewed Joshua and Chris. So Joshua Yakubu from Africa and Chris Little here from Native Americans. Next week, Jim is going to cover a couple of things we'll cover here in this episode in a bit. But I'm curious of kind of how you broke out these 2 weekends. Like, what was the deciding factor of like what content you wanted to cover? The theme of this overall week is following Jesus in global church establishment. And you and I, we had conversations. You're like, to you, this is the heartbeat of what we do, establishing the church.
Right.
And it's God's church. It's not our church. It's not us doing the establishing. It's Him doing the establishing. Yeah. So to figure out how do you get to an established church, I know that you wanted to cover what the needs are. Right. And so what was the heartbeat of kind of breaking out these 2 weeks, but then also why Joshua and Chris were on the stage?
Yeah, so the heartbeat, of the 2 weeks came from, again, I think comes back to just wanting our body to know what they're a part of. And, we often, when we have the opportunity to talk about missions and what we're doing, we talk about, equipping leaders, establishing people in the faith. Well, equipping leaders, it can look like anything to anybody. Different people have a different definition of what that entails and what it looks like. And the same with establishing a church or establishing people in the faith. And, to some people, establishing a church means that, oh, well, they have a building and now they have a children's program and they have a youth program and they have a worship service, and that's an established church. And for us, it comes down to faith, which brings it back to the content of the teaching. And is the teaching of the leaders, of the pastor, is it genuinely establishing people in the faith, or is it confusing them in the faith? Because there's a lot of teaching that confuses people in the faith. And our experience everywhere we work, in every country, every church, every leader that we begin to come in contact with, they're confused in the faith. Very confused in the faith, every one of them. And that's why I asked Joshua in the service, okay, you're in leadership in a giant association of churches, and 10 million members across Africa. And he's been to all those countries. He's been in a lot of the churches and around all those leaders. And have you ever come in contact with one that is clear on the truths that we were laying out, in the message? And no, not until they're taught and discipled. And so we're just in an effort to help our body value what they're a part of. I just think it begins with helping them see the need for what we're doing.
And so let me focus in on that for a second, because it actually changes the measuring system through which we understand the need, because it would be so easy to hear, he's doing great, he's part of a vast network, 10 million, that's incredible. Right. Or the organization, the structure to it, like you said, you get a church gets a building, a department, a ministry, a playground, a this, that, and the other.
Seems like there is no need, right?
Yeah.
You're successful.
Right.
You got all these things happening.
But it's so cool to be reminded of the biblical metric for these things.
Yep.
And it is so fascinating that even within Christianity, there can be a vast difference between a biblical framework and whatever else we stir up.
Yep.
So
and for me also to stress that he's in teaching and equipping other church leaders. This isn't just one church. This isn't just like a big mega church and then there's different depths and layers of maturity of the congregation. We're talking about there isn't just
people who
one
lead people who lead people.
So I think you even shared this, the blind leading the blind or something like that.
Yeah, Joshua mentioned
that.
Yeah.
He said that. And that is eye-opening to think about the exponential either depth of the issues or the concern that is there, or you can look at what is God doing
impact
with us and the impact, and using our team and using people like Joshua and our partners who are slowly just chipping away, church by church, leader by leader to assist them in growing in their faith.
Yeah. In terms of the need, as we were talking about this in preparation for this past weekend, and we were just talking about the need, amongst us, and as we've experienced and seen all around the world, all of us agreed that I think this is one of the number one areas where the church is deceived. That people are deceived into thinking, okay, it's just like the Galatians. I got saved. Like Paul said, you were justified by the Spirit, but now you're trying to perfect yourself in the flesh. You're resting solely in the blood of Jesus for justification, but now you think your sanctification is up to you and your effort and your obedience. And those guys agreed that we think that's the number one deception that exists in the church today. We think the enemy's trying to deceive us into sinning. It's not always just open, obvious, blatant sin.
He's smarter than that.
If he can keep us, who would think that the enemy wants me to be obedient and good? Well, if that's what I'm trusting in for my sense of holiness and righteousness before God, and not the blood of Christ, man,
tactful.
Yeah, it is,
and impactful, because what are the repercussions of that? What are you seeing around the world? I mean, we also heard from Chris Little, it's happening here in our own country.
Yep.
Yes, it is kind of more of the indigenous Native American reservations, but it's happening in our own community. So what are the repercussions? What are the, you're stating this is the need, that it's truly the teaching is lacking and the depth and the lack of understanding of grace. What are the repercussions of that legalistic kind of mentality?
Oh, the repercussions on the Native American reservations is that historically, today people don't want anything to do with God. They don't want anything to do with the church. They're already living in a hopeless situation. Every aspect of life is just hopeless to them. That's why they turn to substance abuse, is to escape that hopelessness. And now the church is telling them, you got to stop sinning, you got to clean yourself up, and then you can come to church. Well, I'll go back to drinking. I mean, they don't want anything to do with the church. They're already hopeless, and now it's even more hopeless. And that's the appalling part to me. Just when you think about the history and what's taken place with Native Americans, to me, that's the worst, is just the distorted gospel message that they've historically gotten from the church. I think we see it in our own culture. What are the stats? Caleb, you work with the youth. Isn't it over 70%?
Yeah, over 2/3 of children
kids
walk away from their faith at age 18.
Right. And I think it's because Christianity is just a religion. And so it's easy to walk away from. It's legalistic. It's the same thing, giving up hope.
And a lot of people think that statistic is this like mindful teenager graduates and they say, I detest God, I'm walking away from him. It's more subtle and more accidental than that, because they realize they've been leaning on their parents' faith instead of their own.
Right.
And they have this, it comes back to the view of God.
Yeah.
And if it's warped,
exactly right.
It's not that some of them don't end up coming back to the faith. When I first read that statistic, I'm like, how's that possible? How do we even have believers?
Yeah.
Well, they have to go through a lot sometimes to come back around. And so you talk about our global church partners, you talk about young people, whoever it is, it's so easy to be unestablished in the faith, or even worse, established in a warped view.
Right.
And then there's an unlearning that needs to take place.
So we hear about this need,
Yeah.
and we see our partners here in the building this week, and we know that you, the missions team, are working with them. If I'm just a general person watching, listening, even there's plenty of newer faces here at FBC.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear a sermon like this. What should I be called to? What should be my reaction? It's not just knowledge. Okay, this is happening in our church. Yay. Okay. What do you see as kind of the next steps for people in our body to grow from this understanding of, okay, this is really what God is doing around the world?
Yeah.
What should our FBC congregation, how should we react to a sermon like this?
Yeah, what I would love to see first and foremost is for people to hear these testimonies. And so, I laid out the need. I laid out a bit of our process. Again, I was only able to give the tip of the iceberg, in both of those points. Next week, I know you're going to get to it in a minute, but Jim's going to talk about the fruit and byproduct of what we're doing, and there's going to be testimonies and stories of how becoming established in the faith is changing people's lives and changing churches. And I would love for people to, hear this need, consider their own life in terms of, the truths that we're laying out, consider the process, consider the testimonies, and consider for themselves, the possibility of picking up a copy of the Knowing God lessons and studying through them. Because, missions is a mindset. It's not a geographical location. And one of the main focal points of our church is discipleship. And really all of our global partners that have come in for this conference, the only difference between us and them is our geographical location. The same truth, the same content that that is going to establish their churches in the faith is the same truth and the same content that's going to establish us in the faith. And so, first and foremost, I would just love to see our congregation just continue, or those that have never gone through Knowing God, pick up a copy of it, start reading it, start studying through it, study through it as a family, read it to your family, read it to your kids. We have a version for kids that a team has put together. We're just getting all kinds of testimonies from these guys of, and all the countries across Africa that we've done Knowing God conferences in, every single one of them. I don't know how many pastors in each place would tell, this has been eye-opening. I've never seen God like this. I've never understood the Christian life to be like this. I mean, everywhere, everywhere.
And that's, I'll just put a plug, because that's what we want to be able to hear from all these church partners at this upcoming conference this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, to hear their stories of how those light bulb moments have taken place with them and with people that they're sharing this truth of God and His grace to.
And I was just going to say, I just think the most important thing for our people is to become established in the faith. And you become established in the faith, you become established in these truths, and you have this order, that I was laying out in the message, that it comes from the inside out. It's, who we are spiritually is who we're made by the blood of Christ and the power of God, not by what this body is doing. And this body is going to act according to my faith. That's where the ability to live out the Christian life comes from. It begins with faith in the facts of the results of the finished work of Christ, and you become established in those truths, and to where it's like it's gripping your life, it's gripping your heart. You won't be able to shut up about it. And no matter where you are, no matter who you come in contact with, I think God's going to use you to pass those truths on to other people. And so the best way for people to get involved is to become established in the faith.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, that's why we're so intentional about this past weekend, the weekend ahead, and even using this podcast time now to continue to expose the body to all these things that are happening and what we hope to accomplish. So I just wanted, before we wrap up, to come to you to just hear, what is happening this week, and reinforce everything Scott's been saying.
Before we do that, it just reminded, what you're just sharing reminded me of one of the key passages, Ephesians 4, that was in the video that we shared, of just kind of the heartbeat of the missions program here at FBC. And it starts with verse 7, but to each one of us, grace was given according to the measure of Christ's gift. And then I'll skip a bit because it goes to where we're talking here. And He gave some of us as apostles and prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as pastors and teachers, for the equipping of the saints, for the work of service, to the building up of the body of Christ. And then here you're talking about faith, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God. So understanding who He is, understanding the gospel, and understanding Himself, to a mature man, to the measure of the stature which belongs to the fullness of Christ. And to me, that what you're saying is a bigger paraphrase version of that passage right there. And that is kind of the heartbeat of, I think, where you're going of the missions program. So
and also everything we're doing in the next few days, and everything our global church partners.
And again,
are
it's not a global thing,
right?
It's each one of us.
Personal
He's
thing,
given each. That's why verse 7, each one of us is given that measure of Christ's gift. So the rest of the week, the visitors are going to be doing some of their own studies with us here in the staff, where we're going to expose them to all of our different ministries at the church. So just pray for that. It would be great to open that up to the entire congregation, but we can't. But they're going to be gleaning of what we do here at FBC, and we're going to, as a staff, learn more about how they can contribute to specific ministries here at FBC. But then as well, before we get to the conference, come out on Friday night for West Oaks. People have been asking me, what do I expect? Can you give more details? Basically, we're renting out the whole place. So it is FBC and FBC only. Bring your friends, but it's not like open to the public. This is our thing. They're going to have staff supporting things like bounce houses and hay rides and pumpkin picking and axe throwing. I think is one thing that they volunteer that they're going to let that happen.
I got a short list of students that might not get close to that station.
But we'll have some of our musicians there playing music. Food will be available for purchase, so just get there and get in line and get food. Just an open house from 4:30 to 7:30, and the visitors will be there. So if you weren't able to come to the Sunday night event, the family night, it's going to be just a bigger example of what just fall looks like in Winchester, exposing our visitors to just the nice fall festival stuff that happens here in Winchester, but then give you an opportunity to just interact with them. So that's Friday night, but then the conference, once again, is the highlight, where you can really hear what God is doing with these visitors around the world. If you weren't planning on coming yet, that's going to be the thing to look forward to. So Saturday morning at 9, Sunday evening after churches and corporate gathering happens, Sunday evening is at 6 o'clock. So there's main sessions, then breakout sessions. So just let us know that you're going to come. And on that Sunday night, that'll be kind of the big grand conclusion, sending them off with the final prayer time. And you won't want to miss it.
It's very good. Scott, yeah, go ahead.
Are you closing? Or are you?
Go for it. You're good.
Well, I just wanted,
Got more
before
things
we
to say.
close,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just really want to thank the body for, just the way that the body has come together to make this week work. And, the host families, we could put them all up in a hotel, but when they can just stay in people's homes like this and be loved, individually and to be doted over and cared for and just the way that every host just goes out of their way to make the time special for who they're hosting. The appreciation that I keep getting from people, is, they're not treated like this anywhere. And so our body is really impacting them, really, I think, really revealing the love of God, the heart of God. And I really believe this week is a real time of physical and spiritual, even emotional refreshment for some of these folks, to come from a place, where worship is the norm, and to be treated like this, and it's words just can't describe it.
And I'll just add on to that. There are actually a couple of different families who are being host and housing people who've only been coming to FBC for a few months.
Right.
Some signed up one of the very first weeks they attended the church, and they're like, that seems like something I want to be a part of. Others, it's only been like 5 or 6 months. I chatted with them on Sunday night. So just the value that you're seeing of the heart of the body to serve in that way is great.
And it's not just FBCers doing that, but for those of us who have been on a trip before or to some of these countries or these churches, they don't hesitate to host us. And so it's this beautiful picture of finally getting a chance to do that for them. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And then this coming weekend, so part 2, right? So we talked about what the need is. Part 2 is more of the fruit, right? And so Jim Poole will be up there with a couple of additional visitors to join us to share, again, the positives of what God is doing around the world and what does an established church ultimately look like. Until we get to heaven, right?
There you go.
So you had asked a question before. I don't think I answered it. Why I chose
breaking it out,
Chris, and why I chose Chris and Joshua.
Yep.
And it was mainly because of just where both of them are at. And currently, we've been working with Joshua for a long, long time, but we've just begun a new endeavor of beginning the process of getting 15 African, EMS fields on board with. And so just beginning with some brand new places, brand new people, he's seeing the need all over again, fresh all over again. Chris, we've gone around to the different Native American reservations, just the need is glaring, Jim is going to be talking about the fruit and byproduct of what we've been doing. So he's going to have some guys up on stage that are a lot farther down the road and that we've been working with for many, many, many years. And so that's kind of how we chose who we chose to have up there.
Beautiful picture of what establishing the church has looked like really over the last 30 years here. So, Scott, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you. All the efforts you've put in. It's been fun to see it come to fruition. I just want to remind all our listeners and viewers you can find all the information we threw out there and more at fbcva.org. The fact of the matter, everybody, is that sermons are not meant to just take an hour, but rather transform a lifetime. Until next week, much love. God bless.